Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. I know it's not the most aesthetically pleasing of setups right now, but I'm actually getting ready to go home to California and wanted to make sure that I had a video out for you guys this week. I asked you in a community post what you wanted to see given that it's final season and everything, and someone requested that I do a reaction to my finals. I just finished them maybe 3 hours ago, so they are definitely fresh in my mind, and I'm happy to tell you about them. This isn't going to be a super informative video regarding law school finals in general. It's just going to be about my experience this particular semester. So if that's interesting to you, awesome, I'm glad you're here. And if not, that's totally fine. And I'll see you with a more generally informative or fun. I haven't decided what video, but it'll be next week. So as I've mentioned in a couple videos this semester, I was taking 16 units comprised of 6 classes. I do not recommend that for many reasons, but the most recent of which is it results in a lot of finals to do in a 2-week period. So the first final I took was actually right before Thanksgiving, and that was for my International Courts and Tribunals class. Instead of sitting down and taking a test or doing issue spotting, we gave oral presentations based on the problem that we had been practically working through all semester. I have no idea how that went because although I felt mostly prepared, that's my phone. Even though I felt mostly prepared for speaking on the topic, there was a judge who was interrupting with questions like they're supposed to, and like appellate courts and international courts really do. Oh my gosh. But he asked a lot of questions that didn't feel that relevant to me in the problem we were studying. It wasn't really what my argument was, and so I wasn't sure how to answer them. I don't know how it came across is basically what I'm trying to say. So it could have gone well, it could have gone terribly. I really have no read on that situation. That was also one of my 2 classes that was only 2 credits. So like I said, I had 6 classes, 2 of which were 2 credits, the rest of which were 3. I'm pretty sure that equals 16. I don't know, I'm sure you'll tell me if they don't. Other class that was 2 credits was lawyer ethics, which I took with the same professor that I had for evidence. He was a professor that I really liked. He had a lot of stories from his time as a federal prosecutor that he would incorporate into classroom lessons. And instead of making us read a bunch of cases, he just gave us his class notes, which was very helpful considering that we had an open book 24-hour final. Because you best believe I was just looking at the questions, looking at his notes, and merging them together. So for both of those finals, I feel like I did okay. I guess I don't think that if I had studied any more, I would have done better. I feel like I did the best that I was able to do. On his evidence exam, there were 1 or 2 questions that I straight up didn't even know what he was asking. Like I had an idea and I went with my answer for that idea, but if I get it back and he's like, you missed the point of the question, that could totally happen because I just didn't understand what he wanted from me. But the ethics one I felt fairly straightforward about, like it didn't seem that complicated, which worries me a little bit because as you know, if you've been watching this channel for a while or you know anything about law school, it's graded on a curve. So how I do individually doesn't matter as much as how I do relative to the rest of my class. So if I feel like the test is easy or straightforward, especially when we all have access to the same notes and answers, I don't know how you distinguish a lot between one test and another one, how you decide one is better. So I guess we'll find out. But I especially felt that way about ethics. Evidence a little less so because it was more confusing, but again, I feel like I did the best that I could do. It was kind of a blessing and a curse that those 2 were 24 hours. It was way less stressful to feel like I had to memorize all the information because it was right there for me to reference. But at the same time, I was thinking about it and working at it for 24 hours on and off. I don't like sitting still for a long period of time, and so any excuse I have to literally do anything but that, I will take advantage of, which is not a great quality for at-home exams. But I had 2 exams, 2 that were 4 hours, which is what is more typical for law school, especially if you're going in person and you're going to sit in the room. It's usually like a 3.5 to 4 hour written exam. They typically let you write it on your computer, but you know what I mean. So we still had to do that for these ones. They were just in a take-home open book format, more open book anyway than they would be otherwise in all likelihood. And those were family law, which I took on Tuesday. I was originally going to take Monday, and I was so glad I didn't, because by the end of Monday I was like, I'm not ready for this exam. And I studied a little bit more on Tuesday, created an attack outline, which I can explain more in a different video if you're curious what that is. I might have referenced it on my channel before, but I made one of those and then took it Tuesday night, and was so glad I did, because all of those extra things I had reviewed on Tuesday ended up being on the exam. So family was the one I was definitely the most nervous about, because not only was it 4 hours, and I felt like I needed to memorize more than I would for the others. It's less case law. It's less, here is the rule, apply it to this situation. It's much more policy driven, and courts have a lot of discretion for many family law issues. And so kind of parsing through which of those there is a strict rule for and which there isn't, and then when there isn't, what to do in that situation, is a little more hard for me. I am much more of a black and white person, which is already at odds with law school. If you see the world in sharp black and white, I'm not saying don't go to law school, just keep in mind it's going to be a little bit more difficult, because the law exists in the gray, and it drives me crazy. But yeah, I finished family. I felt pretty okay about most of it, except for the multiple choice. There were some very difficult multiple choice that I have no idea how I did on, but all of the essays, I feel like I got at least most of the issues, I hope. And next I had criminal procedure, which, along with evidence, I felt like I already had a personal investment in and slight understanding of, because of my mock trial experience and interest in criminal law in general. So for that reason, I felt okay about it. But there's always a but. There's always a but in law school. Like, the one thing that makes it unnecessarily complicated, which for this class is that I almost always disagreed with the professor's conclusions. So the rule he cited, I was like, yep, I'm tracking. His application, I was like, yep, I'm tracking. And then he'd say, so that makes the evidence admissible. And I'd be like, no, that makes the evidence inadmissible. And I'm not saying I know better than the professor, because I don't. But there were some things I'm pretty sure are wrong. In his study hypos, he had like a whole audio file explaining what the answer to the hypos were. And I was listening to it thinking, I understand these issues, but I just don't think that's the right answer. And so I'm kind of hoping that I'll be able to talk to him about it. I actually will have him for my seminar in the spring, which I'm looking forward to, because I think that class format will work better for his teaching style. And he has a lot to say that I'm interested in. I just disagree with some of his conclusions. That's my main worry, I guess, for the final, on top of the fact that I totally ran out of time. He gave us 4 hours, said it would only take 3.5, and I was right up to the buzzer, and I still didn't feel like I had time to finish. There were 2 humongous issue spotters. Normally, at least from what I've heard and experienced so far, issue spotters are like 1 to 2 pages, and you just pull out issues and apply the rules that you've learned in the class to them to see what the outcome would be legally. His issue spotters were 3 to 4 pages, and it's not like it was a bunch of fluff. Like, every other sentence there was an issue. So I remember in the first problem, he said it should only take us an hour and a half. Well, it took me 40 minutes just to read the problem and spot all the issues, and that had nothing to do with writing anything, that had nothing to do with finding the rules, citing the cases, applying them, making a conclusion, none of that. And so I definitely spent almost 2 hours on that, which then led to me not having enough time for the second problem, and it was a whole thing. But I'm really anxious to find out how I did on this exam in particular, because I feel like I pulled out all of the issues, honestly. I feel like I did a very good job spotting the issues, which is not always my strong suit, but I don't know if he'll agree with my conclusions. I think my conclusions were great. I feel like I identified the ones that were very certain of like, yep, this is for sure gonna come out this way, and I identified the ones that would be a little bit more lax, I guess, in a trial court's discretion. They could go either way without it being judged as an abuse of discretion, which is the standard for a lot of appellate rulings in criminal and civil and family court. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not that confident in his agreement with me. So that shouldn't necessarily matter. A lot of the times professors will say like, your conclusion doesn't matter, it just matters how you got there. So if that's how he grades, we should be good to go. But he does talk a lot about conclusions in class, so I'm just not sure. But I finished that last night at like 10:30. And until then, I'd only written 2 pages of my negotiation paper. So comparative business negotiation was another class I took this semester, and it was a really enjoyable class to take, but it was less like learning specific facts or rules and more just practicing a skill. So our final was a paper kind of talking about how we would deal with a certain negotiation and what issues we might see if the parties in that negotiation were from different cultures, because cross-cultural negotiation was something we talked about in the class for a little bit. So I wrote the first 2 pages of this 10-page paper on Sunday or Monday, I think, and I hadn't written any of the rest of it. So I stayed up till 2 last night, typing away another 2 or 3 pages, and then I did all of the citations and the last question, which was like 4.5 pages, this morning at 9 a.m. before noon, because noon today was when everything was due. So I did finish, which means that I'm officially halfway done with law school, which is super exciting. But I won't know how I did on any of that stuff for probably another couple weeks. So when I find out I guess let me know if you are interested in knowing how I did, and I'll tell you if it was good or bad. So far, I'm just above average in my class because, the curve, I'm like right on the upswing of the curve. Your girl is not like 10 top? Your girl is not like top 10% of her class, not even top third of the class, but I'm in the top 50%, and I think for a top 20 law school, top 50% is a good place to be. But yeah, that's where I'm at so far. I anticipate continuing to be there, and if I'm not, that's okay too. I honestly can say I did my best. Honestly, just the fact that I finished is kind of an accomplishment. I don't really have like anything to end this video on, because normally I end on like, and here's what you should take away, but the takeaway is just I'm done, and that's awesome. So for the rest of today, I think it's like 3-ish right now, I'm gonna be packing for my flight home tomorrow morning, and that's it. If you made it all the way to the end, congratulations. I hope you feel just as accomplished as I do now that finals are over, and I really appreciate your support of this channel and of me. If you liked this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you like my channel, and maybe not this video, you can subscribe anyway, and a better one will eventually come along. Until next Saturday, which I don't know what I'll be doing for yet, God bless. Thanks for watching.